got it. Yeah.
Jeff is going to join us as well.
Pardon? Sorry, I have to. Who is joining us?
Jeff Tang.
Yes, yes, yeah. I will welcome him. Yeah.
Hey, Jason, Banco didn't get voted through.
Yeah.
How can we fix that?
Sadly.
Yeah, we can wait for maybe more APR.
That's such a pity. We should have sent a reminder, right, for people to vote. Sometimes people just forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I just did read the Badger incident report. Maybe I can tell you what's there going on. Yeah, it really looks like there's like on Cloudflare, you have like an API key, and there was like a security hole in this. An existing security hole of Cloudflare. And in a way, you were able to permissionless generate new API keys. And then you just had to wait until somebody fails for this and activates it out of, less of it, not enough information basically. And then they were able to, they have like a function who is like filtering the traffic, and they injected into this, the hack basically. And they did it in a very clever way. Somehow they waited for people connecting with high net worth in their wallet, and they only targeted them. So I know the question is if Cloudflare has some responsibility in this, basically, I guess, but 100 million, it's a lot of money. So it's really, it's quite elaborate hack, basically. It's not so easy to do this, I guess.
And that
they even backlisted the multi-signature wallet, the team. So if the team connected to this, to their own service, it never happened because they blacklisted the wallets, people on the multi-signature wallet. Yeah. So maybe we'll see some legal action from Badger's side. I don't know. I don't know if they have a chance to take regress or so. Yeah, that's what's happening on Badger. Looks like it's freshly out. And sushi news, yeah, you see, Joseph Delong, he stepped back basically yesterday, I guess. So it looks like sushi has, and the price jumped only a little bit as at his announcement. But now we see how it's going forward with sushi if they are able to overcome this. And there's a proposal from Akla, I guess, Akla is like I think one of our members, Boule members, he's working there. They have a proposal out to restructure sushi much more in a conventional way, I guess. Yeah. That's and on the news side, we started the airdrop or collecting data for our app, and we had a huge inflow yesterday on the Discord, and that's quite nice to have. And that's from my side. Shall I start? But we just have to wait for the two people who present.
The two presenters are all on the West Coast, is it?
Yes.
Early morning?
This is the reason why we shifted the call.
Okay, so we have a couple of things to cover.
Maybe I can start with this. I have some notes, and So first of all, this is the 10th research meeting. Today it's the 9th of December. Welcome everyone. There was a vote about the new Boule member and Jeff Tang, and he's voted in. So welcome, Jeff. I think he's also here on the call. Welcome as a Boule. And
thanks everybody.
Yeah, hi. Last week, the voting about last week project, so Notion has been voted in Banco has not been voted for. It was like I think one vote was left to get Banco in too, but it didn't work out. Then we are just to forward looking. The cycle will take like 3 other meetings, and of course we will hold the meeting next week. And then it looks like we're going to have a meeting with like pre-recorded on 23rd of November, and this will be the call where Chinese members will present their project. And then it looks like we have a last call on the 30th of December. We're not sure if we held all these calls. We have to look how much people can join during the holidays, with a lot of people in Europe and the US are making holidays during Christmas in New York. But if all works out, then we will finish the cycle at the end of the year. So this is about this. Then we have been discussed that we should, as a sign to incentivize or pay the Boule members until now only get like the onboarding bonus, basically, or part of the onboarding bonus. So we had a discussion in the team that we should like pay out some ALD token for the Boule members, because all of them did a lot of work and present and vote. And one thing is, because we don't have like, we imagine that we have the data points to give out proper rewards, but somehow because the world is more complex than we planned, so we don't have these data points. So we are on doing, we will just pay out 1.35 million ALD token to all the Boule members, and we will adjust some with the engagement, and we're now discussing this, and I will make a forum entry after the call or tomorrow morning. We think about having some metrics about, you get point for presenting, you get point for voting, and maybe we will make point for the project who's voted in. And we will, I will make a proposal in the forum. And the idea is that we pay this out before Christmas, so it should be done by next week. And we will pay out XALD, because now we're changing the tokenomics. So all the ALDs are in the pool, and this is we pay out XALD. So because then if you don't withdraw, you can just leave it there, and then you will take part in the staking, basically. Yeah, then we have another discussion, and then I don't know, the 2 guys. We miss still the 2 guys. So maybe I ping them again.
It's okay. Adam is joining in 2 minutes.
Pardon?
Adam is joining in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we had another discussion who is about changing the. So as we finish this cycle, so we're finishing this cycle soon. So we're going to we think about how we should change things forward looking, and basically in the next cycle. And we have been thinking that we should adjust how voting is done in a way that we think that the Boule needs somehow more skin in the game. And basically now it's now if you vote, you don't have any downside, basically. So you vote and then you get paid, or if you don't vote or you vote no, get paid too, according to the rewards, who is also not finished somehow this model, but we are still working on this. So we have been thinking that people somehow, if they vote, should stake part of their ALD token they get as a reward later. And this is to make, basically, to align, to let people on the Boule more think on for which project they will vote on. Yes. And the other thing is, we found out in this discussion that in the next cycle, Boule members have to present much more precise ways to invest. And some of the Boule members did this very well. You know, they did like propose strategies or 2 strategies how we should invest into this project. Some of the Boule members only did it like in a general way. They just suggested the project like I did. I just suggested better, sadly, and I didn't really decide or dig out a strategy for this. So the idea is that I think the Boule members have to think much more which strategy they're going to implement, and because the Boule members then have to stake part of their future income basically, and I think we will get a much better result or much more honest result on this. Yeah, basically. So that's what we are talking about. Yeah, I see Adam just joined. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, good. How's it going? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, is it earlier? Thank you for joining. And
no worries.
yeah, we
One
did.
sec.
Yes, we did just have some general stuff to discuss, and yeah, we will collect feedback on this, on the things we change, and very much like your feedback. And this is important because we need you on board, and you have to be part of this. Yeah, I think that's from my side. So Adam, if you're ready, you can start. Yeah, I give you the stage.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Cool. I had to close out to share my screen. 1 second.
Yeah. So, okay. We see your
Adam, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you talk to us. We don't hear you yet right now, but we see your shared screen.
Oh, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's good. But we don't see
That's
this.
weird.
This you have to reshare your.
All right, cool. Is that better? Let me
The
try and
voice
share.
is okay, but the screen I don't see. I did see the screen before.
Yeah, 1 second.
Now you're mute again. Somehow. You're mute again somehow. Just I don't know if you. Yeah, now it's good.
All right, you can hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. So there we go. All right. So I guess I'm on the browser version of Zoom, so it's kind of annoying. So yeah, as I guess so some context. So Olympus DAO launched on March 23rd, late March. And I started contributing, kind of in late February, early March. And was working at DeFi Alliance at the time because DeFi Alliance was an advisor to Olympus. And so, through proxy of working at DeFi Alliance, was, kind of part of my duty there was to, kind of work and, take care of Olympus and whatever kind of needs they needed and came up. got really close to a lot of the contributors there as a result of being there, quote unquote early, and so kind of worked really closely with a lot of the guys at Olympus for, I'd say, over literally the last 9 months. 6 weeks ago, stepped down from DeFi Alliance to focus full time on contributing, because it was just taking up a lot of my time, and I enjoyed it and it was natural. So that was a lot of the reason why I made the decision. So what is Ohm? I'm sure a lot of you guys have come across it on the timeline or whatnot. It's an algorithmic currency protocol that uses a bunch of other assets as backing, and as well as a supply constraint. Protocol accumulates assets to mint new Ohm. And, Ohm, consists of a protocol managed treasury, yield generation, liquidity generating bonds, high staking rewards, to control supply expansion, and, now Olympus Pro and various other things. So the Ohm token, is backed by one DAO in the treasury. However, tokens can't be minted or burned by anyone besides the protocol. So the protocol only does so in response to price. Ohm price will always be one DAI plus premium, or treasury value plus premium in the future. But in the end, it's kind of up to the market to decide. So the goal is to build a policy controlled currency system, where the behavior of the Ohm token is controlled at a high level by the DAO. Meaning there's few policy. Can you guys see my screen being updated?
It's not moving.
No, it's still on the title.
All right. Is that better?
It hasn't changed.
Should be better. It hasn't changed. That's interesting. All right. What about now?
It's still the same for me.
This is so annoying. All right, one sec.
Yeah. Is it public? Is the presentation public?
Should be.
Yeah, now.
All right. So the goal is to build a policy controlled currency system, in which the behavior of the Ohm token is controlled at a high level by the DAO. And then in the long term, the system can be used to optimize for stability and consistency so that Ohm can function as a global unit of count and medium of exchange currency. So, that's like the long-term goal. And then, in that, situation scenario, you can expect, very low, kind of double-digit APYs, even lower. And that's kind of when you hopefully have, can be able to see stability and consistency in price, through, high level control of the DAO. Currently, obviously, the supply isn't big enough for that to be the outcome. So the system is optimized for growth at all costs. And then, as a byproduct of the growth, there's going to be wealth creation. So there are two main strategies for market participants. Needs to be updated.
No.
This is going to be annoying because I have the online version. Let me see if I can just share the link to you guys to this. Very sorry about that. All right, I just dropped a link in the chat.
Yes.
So I'm gonna be on slide 4 for whoever wants to follow along.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're not gonna just.
It's restricted.
It's restricted. I gave access to anyone with the link. It looks like. Let me see.
No, not public. It looks like for myself, it's not working.
All right, it should be good now.
Yes, try again.
Cool. So slide 4. So there are two main strategies, for market participants, staking and bonding. So stakers lock supply and they receive a share of the protocol profits as they are earned. bonders provide locked, either liquidity or assets, for the treasury, and they receive a fixed profit after a fixed period of time. So the main benefit for stakers here comes from supply growth. The protocol mints new Ohm tokens from the treasury, the majority of which are distributed to the stakers. Thus, the gain for stakers will come from their auto compounding balances, and the price exposure remains an important consideration. That is, if the increase in token balance outpaces potential price drop, stakers would make a profit. The main benefit for bonders comes from price consistency. Bonders commit capital upfront and are promised a fixed return at a set point in time, and that return is an Ohm, and so the profit would depend on Ohm price when the bond matures. So, and right now there's a little arbitrage strategy that many people have also been running, and this arbitrage strategy is kind of made apparent, intentionally to allow for the protocol to take in more assets, because as the protocol takes in more assets, again, it extends the runway. It's healthy for the protocol, thickens liquidity, grows risk-free backing. So spotting is kind of the engine that moves Ohm forward. So Olympus was, ideated by Zeus and built out by a distributed pseudo anonymous team. Currently it's DAO governed. All decisions are formed by community members on the forum and made by token holders through snapshot voting. For anybody who is concerned, can go and see, there's, I think literally like a few days ago, there's 124, contributors in the DAO server, working on, functions that, all functions that you can imagine, growth and marketing and front end and stuff like that. And anybody can join it and contribute as much as they want, or as little as they want, and get paid in Ohm, monthly. And so it's pretty well structured and set up DAO. So why do we need it? Some typical questions that people ask, like, what's the purpose of it? So crypto has become dollarized. I remember, I think there was some stat where like 60-70% of all crypto transactions are stablecoin related transactions. And we should be combating that. Because if crypto is dollarized, then everything is, we're still beholden to the kind of loose policy of the Federal Reserve. And then that's kind of, the whole industry was built to kind of go against. That was kind of initially what Satoshi wanted as well. So we should be combating that. And that's kind of what Ohm is attempting to, not dethrone, but, provide an alternative. So is Ohm stablecoin? Well, sure, yeah, in the long run, it's supposed to be stable, but not, it's not supposed to be a pegged coin. So it's a free floating, reserve currency backed by various other assets, which will promote stability and consistency at some point in the future. And so it's not pegged to a dollar or any, kind of fiat currency. Rather, it's backed by a dollar and a basket of other assets, but there's no ceiling. And so the market premium that people decide for it to, stabilize at is what it will be at. And some other questions, what is 3-3 and 1-1? So, 1-1 is just bonding, 3-3 is staking, and 3-3 being the most cooperative outcome, assuming everybody, if everybody staked, it's the most cooperative and the most, productive outcome for Olympus. And you're seeing, Olympus started with 3-3, and now you're seeing almost every single person in their bio put some derivative of 3-3 as like a DAO, signal or whatever. It's kind of I didn't touch on this earlier. Look, a testament to the strength of the Ohm community, the influence that they've had, and a lot of the reason why they've grown so much this year. So why does price of Ohm become irrelevant long term? So there was an instance, there was a point in time when we launched, and then in mid-April the price shot up to like 1,300. A lot of people bought or whatever, and then all of a sudden the price fell from 1,300 to 200 because a whale had sold about $1.5 million in one go and caused a bunch of other sellers. And at the time, liquidity bonds weren't the thing. So the only bonds that people were taking, only bonds that Olympus was taking into the assets were risk-free bonds. So DAI and Frax eventually came along. And the reason that, taking in these are important is because they allow us to mint new Ohm against these coming in. And so if you think about it, Ohm doesn't have any incentivized liquidity pool at the time, because why would somebody provide liquidity when they can get 150,000% APY just staking? So, we had a couple funds, altruistically providing liquidity in order for, some people to come in and out of the trade. And then, obviously the price fell because somebody sold.
Adam, sorry. Which page, which slide are you? I'm sharing your slide on the.
FAQs. It's not on the slide. I'm just talking. Yeah,
Okay.
but FAQs. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was, Zeus and a lot of members of the DAO got together and they were like, hey, look, we can take the bonding model that we have, implement it into an LP bond. And that way now, instead of just providing DAI, people can provide the OHM DAI SLP token into the treasury for OHM at a discount over 5 days. And, the protocol would swallow that SLP token, thus allowing the protocol to own that liquidity. And on a long enough timeline, we can, own more and more liquidity to stop something like this happening again. And you can, like a parallel that I typically like to draw is this is like, it's almost like an attack on Bitcoin, right? Like in order to attack Bitcoin, you need to have a bunch of compute power. It's very resource intensive. And then you can go back and like reorg the chain for your benefit. Similarly, like with OHM, like the more and more liquidity that Olympus owns, the more difficult it becomes to be able to cause, a cascading, downward price action. Because as Olympus gets to, owning 3 billion in liquidity, 4 billion in liquidity, it would take a lot more money to be able to, drop the price of OHM. And it's conversely, it'll also take a lot more money to increase the price of OHM, almost promote stability. And so what happened was, there's some background noise. So what happened was, we had a bunch of people who bought around 1,300. We realized we needed thick liquidity. So we, had implemented these bonds, and the DAO really loved it. A lot of people started implementing this liquidity, and all of a sudden you saw, like $8 million sale being equivalent to what a $1 million sale was at the time. And by the time price hit like 400 or 500 again, after like a few, 6 weeks or something, 8 weeks, the people who had bought at 1,300, 1,400 were already in profit. Because, the reason why price isn't relevant is because when you buy in at a specific market cap, essentially. You face a little bit of dilution from bonders, but you effectively buy like your piece at a specific market cap. And so if the market cap goes up, you would presumably be in profit. And so, you should, like, people should think of it as you're securing a little piece of the pie at this price, being the market cap price. And you want the overall pie to grow. And that's when your slice of pie gets bigger. And so I think that's why, like, people worrying about, OHM trading at whatever, like, worrying about price isn't the most important, metric. So I was talking about, protocol and liquidity and bonding and why that's important. So, protocol and liquidity is simply just owning our liquidity. Olympus does not have to pay out high farming rewards to incentivize liquidity providers, which, Zeus likes to call renting liquidity. And that's kind of like the model that we've seen for about the last year and a half. And that you kind of end up with, mercenary liquidity providers who can, rug pools and literally be the death of a protocol. We saw that during DeFi summer. So Olympus guarantees the market that the liquidity is always there to facilitate sell or buy transactions. And then the beauty of this is, when you're the largest LP, the liquidity provider, because you own all of it, it earns a lot of liquidity providing fees, which, is another source of income to the treasury. So I remember like on mid-October, there was a bunch of cascading liquidations for Olympus because there was a whale that was kind of unhealthily levered in Tetranode's fuse pool. And, it was like $25 million worth of liquidations that cascaded and more selling happened. And protocol fell like 60% that night and then rebounded. And it was just a lot of volatility. The protocol made, I think it was like $1.1 million in just trading fees that day, which is, or 1.3 million or something, which is almost like $500 million annualized, that would go right into the treasury. So, and that's kind of like the beauty of owning your liquidity. And so kind of some other initiatives that have come out, as the DAO, continue to, set a strong foundation. So Olympus Pro, and so Olympus Pro is the outsourcing of the protocol owned liquidity bonding mechanism. And essentially what that is look, like, people can fork that contract, sure, but the beauty of doing it with Olympus is, like, there are 3 or 4 reasons why you would want to do that. One, Olympus does the whole entire kind of onboarding for you. They create the code for the contract for you. They tune the parameters for the bonding for you, and all you gotta do is tell them what you're trying to get out of the program. And there's a whole team that works on this. Number 2, you get a bunch of like co-marketing. If you're like a relatively small protocol that wants to build a name, you could come to Olympus, do Olympus Pro, and then do an AMA in the Discord server, get eyes by, hundreds, thousands of other community members, tweets, blah, blah, blah. Number 3, you get listed on this front end called Olympus Pro. And which is like, Olympus, a separate front end for the Olympus app. And that is a front end that lists a bunch of other Olympus Pro partners, and you would get listed along there. Not the biggest deal, but kind of, it's like a nice little add-on where you get more exposure, more awareness, especially if you're a new kind of low-key protocol. And the fourth piece, which is more beneficial to Olympus, but I'd say also for the protocol, is Olympus charges a small fee in the protocol's native governance token for doing this. And if you kind of step back and look at that from a larger perspective, this fee. So for example, Alchemix, right? Let's say we charge Alchemix a 3.3% fee in the Alchemix token. Now a bunch of Alchemix tokens start siphoning into our treasury, the Olympus treasury, and the beauty of that is you're effectively making the Alchemix token more scarce, because that's going into a treasury that will probably never sell. So the beauty of also doing Olympus Pro with Olympus rather than just forking the contract outright is your supply will also get more scarce. And so Olympus Pro has been doing great. Just did a great batch of onboarding for Andre Cronje for Keeper, and you could see his tweets about it. And he had a great he had a great experience, and he really was tweeting all about how he loved it. He's going to be speaking at FOMO 4, which is a community event that the Omis do on Sunday, I think 4:30 Eastern time. And so, yeah, highly recommend coming to that, checking that out, and checking out Olympus Pro if you haven't. Proteus is another initiative that has been launched by the DAO recently, and that's for cross-chain expansion. It's a $100 million liquidity incentive program because Olympus has a lot of OM in the treasury, and pretty much incentivizing this GOM is the token. And so essentially what GOM is wrapped staked OM. So it's already staking natively, through just being the GOM token, and trades at a different price. The price is the index, and index meaning how much your supply would have grown from day one if you had one ohm, right? Right now the index is like 43.5 or something. So your supply or your stash would have grown by 43.5x if you bought on the first day. And so GOM trades at the price of S ohm, or the price of ohm times the index. So when you go and try and unwrap that GOM token, you will end up with, the appropriate amount of S ohm that you deserve. And, GOM just allows it to be on cross-chain, right? Avalanche, Moonriver, and whatever. And so the program is to, kind of test out where we can build up the most cross-chain liquidity, right? To test it out on Polygon and Arbitrum and Moonriver and Phantom and Avalanche and wherever else, and Harmony or wherever else, and wherever the most liquidity ends up, Olympus will arguably, presumably decide to, leave, GOM's prominence to be on those, separate chains. And so that's Proteus. Forks, right? Obviously, like, OM fork season has been like one of the biggest things that people have been talking about. I think is just the beauty and just a testament to the greatness of OM. But some great forks would be Klima and Rome. Klima was birthed in the Olympus DAO Discord server one day when Zeus was giving an AMA, and he was bringing people up stage to, if they wanted to ask some other questions or whatever. And some gentleman came up and started speaking about, hey, what if we take this model and use it for, to affect the earth and, in a better way. And it's kind of how the idea of Klima was born. And then, from there, we really helped them, kind of launch it and basically incubated it. Rome is almost the same in that a bunch of, OT Omis is what they call themselves, which is like the specific channel in the Discord server off topic where a lot of people, hang out and have a lot of fun. These OG Omis went and said, hey, look, let's go, OM needs cross-chain presence. A lot of the cross-chain presence so far has been, quote unquote, nefarious or not beneficial to OM, which is just sad and unfair because, like, whatever, pay homage to the king. So they say, hey, look, let's go launch this on Moonriver, and let's, let's have the mission to become the largest GOM holder, by, eventually after launch, implementing GOM bonds and taking in as much GOM as we can into our treasury, which is obviously super beneficial for OM. And then in the process, let's have a little bit of fun, maybe create a game alongside it, gamify governance and see what experimentation we can do around that. So that's kind of what Rome is doing. And then obviously there's like, Time, Wonderland, and that has its own whole story and various other forks that have launched. But I think that Klima and Rome are the only quote unquote, accepted or whatever forks of Olympus. So some growth, metrics that I just want to see. I screenshotted these about a few hours ago. So the risk-free value of the treasury is about 190 million, so almost $200 million. The Olympus Pro treasury, this is from, bonding the other people's liquidity for them, and we get the fee, is, almost, marching its way to $1 million. The market value of treasury, obviously, this number fluctuates. Right now, it's about 750 million, and you can kind of see the growth here, right? And so that's a lot of it has been recently. And the more people bond, the more these numbers grow. Some more growth, so the LP fees. So to date, we've made almost $25 million just by owning our liquidity, and that money, in return goes right into our treasury. And the holders over time, we have nearly 85,000 ohms. I think we breached 10,000 literally in July. So between July and December, we've seen this number grown over 8x. And this number is pretty interesting. What I like it. So revenue with, the LP market value. And so this is pretty much how much is bonded, and in our peak, like you can see right here, like, October, November, we were, really beginning to ramp things up, and it's kind of like, markets were higher too, right? I think like around then, like that's when Bitcoin started to fall soon after. But you can see, like, as there's a lot of confidence in the market, the total revenue on a 7-day moving average was, the protocol was taking in like almost $16 million worth of assets, right? Like, for example, just this day, October 28th, it took in $9 million of Ohm DAO liquidity. So there's a lot of activity. Bonding is, been doing, it's really been proving itself, and that's why a lot of other protocols are saying, hey, look, we should also have bonds to own our liquidity. So this number, interesting. It's the current runway. So if the protocol completely stopped bonding today, it would still be able to sustain, rewards for 375 more days, which is I think extremely impressive. And the protocol is going to be currently the APY, I believe, is about like 7,000%, and so that number is going to drop to 1,000% or so as current targets are hit. And there's an OIP 18 is the Olympus improvement proposal that was passed that talks a lot about why this is important. Decreasing decreasing APY eventually extends runway by a lot, and you can kind of see that like near in between August 1st and September 1st when that change was made, and then again when that change was made. And so eventually you'll see that again, and that is it ensures more health for the protocol. And so I think that's it. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of Olympus DAO, at least as much as I covered, hopefully is enough, to cover it in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's, I guess there are some questions. Maybe I start, but I find them, maybe it's not about the project itself, but I wonder how the coordination is done, governance-wise. We see a lot of, I looked at the forum about people making the Ohm forks and then try to get support from the Ohmies and this kind of thing. And and also maybe a little bit in light, about sushi, the governance problem sushi right now has. And we see that it's not easy to coordinate such new things, basically, or govern it. So how does it work? How is it structured?
I mean, we have over 100 contributors in the DAO, and I think people, once you become a quote unquote contributor in the DAO, you really start to meet other contributors in the DAO, and like a lot of the governance proposals, a lot of the hey, we should try this, we should do this, we should do that. It comes from people in the DAO, from the conversations that they have, and yes. Obviously, like they're like, look, we can't do this without the community's approval. Let's make sure we get the community's approval. So a bunch of guys from the DAO, or even community, it happens oftentimes too. But we're typically seeing people from the DAO will get together, and then draft up a new community proposal, and kind of go from there. And it's very grassroots. It's very native, organic. Conversations that then turn into forum posts that then be taken to Snapchat, for vote, assuming that there's enough traction, etc. And I think it's it's very different than what most people are used to from other DeFi protocols, because like I feel like you just typically don't see governance this active, and you don't see discourse this active either. Like I remember we had an OIP recently that had a lot of stark opinions for and against it that were voiced on Twitter, and people were like arguing with one another and kind of really butting heads. But I, and people and like, oh, like look at this, like there's a community that's completely, they're not agreeing, and how do they even govern this? I thought that was beautiful. Like it's at least you're not just having people blindly voting yes or no, or just sheepishly voting yes or no. You're actually seeing genuine discourse, genuine disagreement, and people genuinely voicing their opinion on one side as to why we should or shouldn't do this. And the more of that there is, it's just more of a testament to how vocal people are about Olympus, the community, and how involved and active they are. And so we took pride in that, and we continue to promote that, as a DAO, as a community. Whenever I'm in the server, I love to tell people, that's awesome that we're seeing this happen. And we need that, we should set the precedent in the space that like, hey, look, governance can be useful. Like it doesn't have to be like, you're like really like just begging for people to vote. Like we can set the precedent that like, if you do things the proper way, like you can have genuine, voter outcome and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I've got a question. So now that like with the new tokenomic proposal that we're now have voted to start implementing, Aladdin is also trying to own its own liquidity and offer bonds and do some similar things. And sort of, I'm curious about your, I mean, this is probably a longer conversation, honestly, but like, there's a lot of ways that we could interact with Olympus and with Olympus Pro and with the community. And it sounds like, you've seen a lot of that happen from, protocols that are experimenting with similar models and how they interact with the community. And wondering if you have any suggestions or advice about how we, as a protocol that's hoping to, do something different with protocol-owned value, how we might sort of interact with the community of Ohm, with the Ohmies.
Yeah, so it would kind of be, just going off that 4 step process that I highlighted earlier. So obviously, and I can make help with this. You get in touch with the Olympus Pro team in the DAO. A representative, from Aladdin would kind of step into the server, go back and forth conversations, figure out exactly what's needed, etc. And then from there, you would the contract would be whipped up and co-marketing. So it's kind of the process that was, done at the DAO. And then, that's kind of how like the relationship with the Ohmies would begin to start and flourish. I know there's like a backlog right now. There's like, I think like I have already done like over 30 protocols, and I think there's like over 30 in line, like literally just waiting, for their turn, and like we're doing them in batches, what we call cohorts. And so I think it's like cohort 6 right now or something.
So you're saying Olympus Pro, you think just the best way to interact with that community would be Olympus Pro straight up?
Well, I think that's like the only way at the moment. I mean, the other way would be, I mean, I don't know, like I think that's really the only way. The only other way we've seen people interact with the Olympus community or like, get quote unquote a stamp of approval or whatever has been, Klima, which was birthed in the Ohm Discord server, obviously, and then Rome, which intends on being the largest holder of Geom, and then some other protocols are now stepping out of the woodwork, saying, "Hey, look, we're also going to own Geom on a separate chain." And it's not like we give them a stamp of approval, but they get like respect from the community, respect from broader communities, in that, hey, look, like there's 85,000 Ohmies and much more watching. They see a protocol starting to accept Geom. We're like, oh shit, that's pretty cool. Like they're accepting Geom. That is commendable. So there's that, okay. And then the other avenue, is just Olympus Pro. I don't see another avenue really.
And do you feel like people would be upset? Like, I mean, what is like the community's take on projects that are experimenting with this model of bonding, et cetera, but are not, officially connected to Ohm? Are people hostile?
No, like we can't stop that. Like, you can't stop innovation. Like, people can take the model and do whatever they want with it, right? Like that's up to them. Like, we couldn't really stop any of these forks. And as a community, like, we talk about that a lot. And, we all, it's not, it's out of our control. And people are going to run with it. They can run with it. It's just that, the optionality is there where, hey, look, you can work with the OMIs. But if you don't want to, by all means, go ahead. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think there's just like a opportunity for us here as a DAO to reach out to that community, because it's clearly a group that's really seen the power of this model in action. And I think we're proposing like a pretty great substantial twist or upgrade on that model by having this group, the Boule, manage that treasury. And so it's sort of like, I think they could be like a really great group of people to market to and say, hey, we're like trying something different on the back end using like somewhat of a similar mechanism on the front end, which you all have familiarity with. So I don't know, it would be interesting to take that conversation a little further. It sounds like you have some specific experience and connections that might be like really helpful if you felt like that was attractive.
Cool. Yeah, no, happy to definitely make that happen. And yeah, like we'll could definitely connect to the right people and continue the conversation for that.
Cool. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that would be super helpful, Adam. So I have a question. So Olympus had done really well, right, in the sort of like bull market cycle. So how do you see the challenges, for them to cope, with this volatile and, a bear market cycle?
Yeah, so I obviously as like everything, begins to take a downturn and, look like, bids go dry as less and less, there's less confidence in the market. Sure, things will be choppy, like we're already seeing that with overall price action, things are a little choppy, like for Bitcoin or whatever. I think that you'll see that, all across the board. But I think like once the dust settles, quote unquote, like, whenever that settles and what that looks like, I think Ohm would do really good in a bear market. I think a lot of people who start, like the dust settles, people have stables, other people are sizing in, you'll see bonding like really, really take off, because by then I imagine like, price action won't be the best, right? Like, things are just flat and dry, like, just stringing along. But that's like a beautiful, beautiful scenario for Ohm, for bonding, right? And so what I imagine is like price action will be super subtle. We already own over $500 million of liquidity, and that number is going to continue to grow. So like it'll take a lot to drop the price. It'll take a lot to increase the price. And so in turn, what we'll see is a lot of people bonding and the protocol just sucking in a bunch of assets, extending runway, and people might not be, making the most lucrative terms or whatever, which it doesn't matter. Like they shouldn't care about that. If you care about the long-term vision, you'll just see a bunch of people, providing a bunch of assets to the treasury. And so I think that like, and during a bear market, and this is just my personal opinion, will this play out? I have no idea, but I firmly believe like during a bear market, we're just going to see Olympus take in an insane amount of assets, and thus extending the runway, and really, and like that starts this whole cycle where like, let's say it's only trading at like at a 2.5x premium to what its treasury value is, and some whale on the market or some fund is like, I can't believe it's only trading at a 2.5 premium. It should be trading at a 4x premium because it's, amazing protocol, blah, 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 big community, whatever. Like, and that's kind of like what starts the bull cycle of Ohm. Like price goes up and then people are like, nah, this is too high. And there's like, we've literally been seeing that, like if you go on the Dune Analytics dashboard, you'll kind of see like the chart of what, the market cap to the treasury value is. And you can see like, when the number trends low to a specific, I think it's like around 3.5, you'll see it like spike right up afterwards. Because people will be like, oh no, 3.5x, NAV is not high enough. Like it's gotta be a little bit higher than that. So I don't know, we'll see how it plays out. But I think that it like Ohm will eventually have like its own mini cycle, like obviously bids will dry. And once the dust settles, Ohm will continue to have like its own little mini cycles, like how it was having in the bull market too, where, Ohm would go up, Ohm will go down, almost agnostic to what the overall markets were like. I do think though that like most of the forks will probably not, like the way that they already like dilute a lot of their holders a lot more than like Ohm does, and I just don't see those kind of making it through a bear market.
Yes, thank you. So
That's
yes,
helpful.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
I
actually
think
have another
yeah, go ahead.
question. So Adam, can you share some like insights? So what is, like the roadmap, like Olympus DAO plans out to be another currency? Because it's just so
Yeah.
important, right?
Yeah, so I mean, so again, like the long-term mission and vision, and this has been, even before launch, like this has been voiced since like the first article or whatever, 10 months ago or so, is to be this free-floating, stable currency that's not pegged to the dollar, not pegged to any fiat, just floating at a value that, the market decides that it should be floating at, through, high level, policy frameworks by the DAO. And that would, allow crypto to not be dollarized. Again, like over half of all transactions in crypto currently are, stablecoin transactions. So how can we go away from that and not be beholden to the loose, monetary policy of the Federal Reserve? And so that's the long-term vision. And, in order to get there, obviously, like these are what we believe, the community believes, and seemingly what the market believes. These are the dynamics to get there, by, implementing bonding to own liquidity and suck up a bunch of treasury assets and mint to own against, the growth of the treasury, to, continue to reward people and effectively like have this, specific human coordination, form around, this protocol, in order to allow it to achieve its mission and vision. That's like long-term, right? The mission and vision. Near-term, like a roadmap, like, as I mentioned, there's this Proteus, which is like the cross-chain liquidity. There's like other, forks taking in a bunch of, geom into their treasury, which in turn pretty much makes like us a little bit more scarce because, a percentage of protocol is not owned by them. And so there, there's that, we have, Olympus V2 coming out, going through audit coming out soon, which, kind of reimagines bonding. There's a whole article about it, that you guys can read about V2. So, near term, obviously there's a lot of work to be done and there's a lot of work continuously being done to, make the protocol the best version of itself. There's always people in the DAO coming up with new features, like, for example, Olympus apps, just came out, which was an integration that we did, with the Zapper team, where I think literally like the Zapper co-founder coded it himself, was essentially, you can directly zap into SOM without having to go through a bunch of the transactions, because Ethereum has very high gas fees. And, oftentimes people literally have to pay like, $50 for a swap, and then like $20 to approve the contract, and like another $50-$60 to stake it. And you end up spending like $200. And if you're investing only $1,000 into Ohm, you've already lost like 20% just in gas fees. And so what we're seeing is, all these apps was like an initiative where it's like, all right, you can go straight from like USDC to SOM, all done in the back end for you with some gas optimization, and that would hopefully cut costs a bit and stuff. So there's always like little projects that are coming out of that nature, that to help improve, and help onboard more OMIs or whatever the case is. So wouldn't be able to exactly pinpoint a current roadmap, but pretty much like whatever innovation people want to do, everyone's open to the idea of it. So, if any of you guys think there's ways to improve the protocol, like you can just easily just drop in the server and people will listen to you and take you seriously. But yeah, so that's, can't really answer for short term, but for long term, it's the roadmap is to, hit that eventual end state of a floating currency.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have many questions, but I want to focus on the three questions. First question is about your staking return. So the currently you're going to sit like around 7,000%, which is pretty high. And I'm also the staker for the Olympus DAO. But 1 month ago, the stats it's probably 8,000 or so. So it's gradually decreasing. Then my expectation for your project, probably you guys want to decrease those staking return, the step by step, and you want to motivate the user to switch from staking to bonding. Is that correct?
Indirectly, yeah.
But how are you going to achieve that goal? Because, to me, it's pretty big curious about that. How you're going to achieve that goal point?
Achieve what point?
Achieve like, how you're going to transit from the major, most of the Olympus DAO token holder from switching from staking to the bonding?
I mean, we've already done it twice, right? So it's just going to be the same process again. You just lower the APY, and people will, the market will naturally end up trending towards that. We started at 150, 180,000% APY, fell from there, dropped the APY to, I believe it was like 60,000%, and then to 20,000%, and now we're at this 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, and then we're going to be at 1,000, and then go from there. I mean, people should know this. I guess a lot of the newer ohmies who come in the last 2 months maybe don't remember or haven't come across it yet. Eventually the APY is going to be like double digits in single digits, like on a long enough time. That's what's going to happen. And by then supply will be huge, in the hundreds of millions or billions or whatever the number is. And so and so I think that, I guess maybe that's a huge misconception. Maybe many people are, that's why maybe, I don't know, maybe it's very contentious conversation in the server too. And it's typically literally old ohmies having to educate new ohmies why dropping APY is good, because all the new ohmies are just apes who just want high APY and don't understand, the benefits of having, and why it's so advantageous to drop the APY and focus on longevity of the protocol.
I see. But do you see, may I ask you one more question? So do you see any kind of price relationships between an OMI token and, staking return, and also, these bear market, these days? Because once you're gonna, let's say staking ratio goes down, volatility, how are you gonna, the volatility happen here after these stats change?
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so, currently, OMI token is kind of bear market. Then do you see any kind of correlationships between those in a bear trend on OMI token? Also, those, staking API return, as numbers change.
Yeah, if I understand that correctly, I think I believe this is, my opinion, and I think sure, Ohm will relatively, behave relatively similar to what the overall market sentiment is, which is totally normal, right? That's kind of, you can't, literally stocks are down today, Bitcoin's down, Ohm is down, right? There's nothing we can do about that. And so I think that's normal, but I firmly do believe that, within its own little ecosystem, Ohm will have its own cycles, and these will be due to, a multitude of factors. One will be, you're changing the APY, and maybe, new ohmies, a lot of new ohmies were thinking, they're only APY chasing, so they sell and price goes down. But, then the price goes down, and then a bunch of people oh, this is too cheap. Treasury to market cap treasury value. Let's bid it back up. And so I'm under the impression that we'll see its own mini cycles. As I was saying earlier, we will see its own mini cycles happening, almost agnostic. Yeah, sure, the overall trend will be to the overall market, but you'll see internal markets, internal cycles within Ohm that are relatively agnostic to what the overall crypto market is kind of going through. And the beauty of that is it's only going to happen quote unquote now, while it's still relatively small, only 85,000 holders, which sure is a lot, but if you compare it to how many holders Bitcoin and Ethereum have, it's not. And I think what people tend to forget is Ohm isn't supposed to be compared to some DeFi protocol or whatever, lending protocol, whatever. It's technically supposed to go up against Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Or USDC or whatever. Those are the protocols that it's kind of fighting here and going up against. And if you look at because if you really look at what Satoshi wanted, you want a peer-to-peer, cash, electronic cash system, right? That's not what Bitcoin is. But that's what Ohm can be. And this entire ecosystem built around it. And so effectively now you have this cap where all right, Ohm's market cap is, technically the total addressable market is, uncapped. And so what happens, does it get there? How does it get there, et cetera? And so that's why I think focusing on the long-term vision of what Ohm is supposed to become is way more important than focusing on, short-term price action, especially price. Price is honestly probably the most useless metric to look at. And we try to educate this and voice this as much as we can. But obviously, new ohmies, whatever, it just doesn't really click to them.
I see. Thank you.
Hey, Adam, just a quick question, and forgive me, you probably covered this because I was really late here today. I had to take my kids to a doctor's appointment. So,
No worries.
when the price of Ohm drops, can you just explain it like I'm five about like what is the mechanism or the incentives that um, basically drive good behavior in the protocol. I
Yeah.
think one part of it, and I'm probably not understanding this, is that if the price drops, like that's an opportunity to obviously like pick up Ohm at a lower price and then be able to like stake that and then earn, I guess, higher returns when it's back up and there's a higher APY. But anyways, yeah, anything you can do to help me understand this.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things, right? So price drops, and obviously, like, protocols such as Ohm are very reflexive in nature. And so once price starts falling even more because other people start selling, etc. And you'll see like very like quickly like a 10% fall or whatever, 15% fall. And like you said, now it's like an opportunity for somebody who wanted to eventually get into Ohm, step in, buy whatever, and get more bang for their buck, and thus have larger rebases or whatever. So that's kind of one that kind of stops that or promotes good behavior. Number two, and this actually kind of also like this kind of more so showcases why price falling is kind of like a nuisance, is because when price falls, there's a little bit of like instability, uncertainty, and so people are less inclined to bond. Because as what I mentioned earlier was bonding, like bonders love flat price because they get their Ohm at a discount, they stake it, so then eventually the discount is a little bit more amplified because you stake right, you claim and stake right before a rebase. You effectively get a 5% discount turns into like a 9% discount, and the 5-day staking reward is 6%. So you beat that by 50%. So you love flat price. And so now if you take that specific portion and go a little bit more granular, say that I bonded Ohm at $500, like $100,000 worth or whatever, at a 5% discount, and price stayed at like 500, 501. I was claiming auto staking, so I was getting even like up to an 8% discount. But all of a sudden, like on the third day, let's say the price of Ohm fell to like 482 or like 480 or whatever. I'm annoyed now because I did a 10% discount at 500, or no, let's say 5% discount. Let's say even more. Let's say it felt like 410 or something. Now I'm annoyed because I did a discount, but price fell more than what my discounted purchase is going to be. Well, what we've been seeing, we've seen this before, is whales defend their bond price. And so what you'll see happen is like a whale that has like $5-10 million bonded a couple $100,000, because that's the most that they can do, that's capacity. They bonded a couple $100,000 at a discount, giving them a specific price. They will defend the price wall of what the discount is. So as soon as like it falls to like 460, and that's what their discounted price was, if Ohm starts going near 460, they'll buy it back up because they want to defend what the the amount that they're buying at, and in turn hopefully buying it back up at like 470 and bidding it back to 480 or whatever promotes more confidence, and it goes back up, it starts rallying back above 500. And so that's kind of like an instance that we've been seeing take place, that if you go look on chain, you can kind of decipher that behavior, which has been super cool. But yeah, I mean, typically like it's a lot of it is like somebody pretty much halts like the downward reflexivity and hits the reversal and the uptrend behavior for and promoting more confidence back in the market. And so that's just like it's just like human behavior and market conditions and how that goes. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. I think we hit the hour, and it looks like that Sanil missed this presentation. Maybe it's too early for him. Yeah, so maybe Sanil will present another next time, but I think it's been very interesting to see one of the most successful product, or that you present one of the most successful product in this cycle, and there's a lot to learn from Ohm, I guess. And yeah, I think we close here, and have everyone a nice day. See you next week.
Yep. Thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you.
the opportunity. Yep.
Thanks, Adam. See you guys
Thanks,
next
Adam.
week.
Feel free to message me on Twitter or Discord or whatever. Happy to answer any questions there.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yes.
I'll reach
Thank
out to you. Okay. Thanks, Adam.
Ciao.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Hey, thanks, Martin. Thanks, Sherilyn. Bye,
Cheers.
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
ciao.
Keep it that. Okay, bye.